Welcome to this Newcomers webinar, the awareness presentation on the Local Single Sky implementation, LSSIP. Before starting this, we would like to share some practicalities with you. First of all is the audio settings. You as audience, you will be muted during these presentations. The Q&A sessions is for the written questions and will be answered at the end of the 6 modules. We have a chat you can use to communicate technical issues and other experiences and suggestions. And this presentation is being recorded in order to be shared later on. At the beginning of each module, the presenter will introduce him or herself. My name is Nancy Lem. I'm the LSSIP coordinator and contact person for a few countries. The LSSIP kickoff event will take place on the 27th of October and will focus on the upcoming LSSIP cycle. In addition to these recordings, and as a preparation to the start of this cycle, some educational information has been created to provide more details on certain subjects that will help you, guide you through the database implementation issues. All this is available on SharePoint. This presentation is meant to guide you through the principles of the ATM implementation planning, reporting, and monitoring in Europe, meaning the European ATM Master Plan Level 3 and the LSSIP, which is a local single sky implementation mechanism. It is mainly useful for the newcomers to the LSSIP process, and especially to those attending the LSSIP Plus kickoff annual event. The presentation to follow is divided in 6 modules, starting with module 1, the introduction. The outline of this webinar is as following. Module 1 is the introduction, followed by module 2, the requirements, explaining the why of the process. Module 3, the deliverables, the analysis of the deliverables that are produced with some examples. Module 4, it's a process, how we interact with all stakeholders. Module 5, the IT tools that support us. And Module 6, a summary of all these modules. The pictures on this slide that you see is a well-known European ATM Master Plan pyramid showing its 3 levels. Level 1, which is the executive view of the master plan. Level 2, the planning and the architecture view. And then level 3, the master plan. Level 3, the implementation view, and the end LSSIP under it. The level 3 of the master plan is a yearly update of the mature objective of the overall master plan itself, which is only updated every 3 or 4 years. All this will be explained in full details. So what you find in the introduction is an overview of the context of the planning, the reporting and the monitoring mechanism, including the introduction on a framework and EUROCONTROL's role in this. So during this webinar, the focus is on the core work of this unit and process. Therefore, any other planning and monitoring involvements, such as the monitoring of OLDI, NetSys, and USpace, or any additional work done within SDM, is not part of this briefing. The presentation provides a broad overview of the single European Sky implementation planning and reporting mechanism at both pan-European and local levels. It covers questions such as, what is the ATM Master Plan Level 3? What is an implementation objective? What are the tools and the processes for ATM implementation planning and reporting? What are the criteria set to determine implementation progress? And who are the stakeholders and the users? For part of the evolution, and don't worry about the abbreviations, they will all be available in the note of these slides. More than 25 years ago, we had the Convergence on Implementation Plan, the CIP, to support the European A2C harmonization and integration program, the so-called ECHIP. This was followed by ECHIP and LCHIP, European CIP and local CIP to support the Eurocontrol ATM 2000 plus strategy. As of the 2008 cycle, SIP and LSIP were introduced, including the single European sky dimension. From 2011, the process is fully integrated in the European ATM Master Plan, representing its level 3, the implementation view. And since 2021, the process is fully adapted to ensure monitoring of common projects for the CESAR deployment manager. The Master Level 3 plan and the LSIP planning and monitoring progress tie together all levels of ATM planning and monitoring. This ensures the consistency among the local level, European level, and regional levels, mainly the European Civil Aviation Conference, the ECAC area, plus the two comprehensive agreement states, Israel and Morocco. This results that, in one hand, at local level, they refer to both state performance and stakeholder plans, while on the other hand, at global level, provide information to the ICAO European ASBU monitoring process. The Single European Sky regulatory framework needs concrete implementation plans for Europe as a whole, and these have to be based on the European ATM Master Plan. Once a European plan has been agreed to, local and regional plans have to be drawn up in line with the EU legislation. These will be used by air navigation service providers, regulatory authorities, the military, airports, airspace users, and so on. Individual stakeholders then compile their own implementation progress reports. These are later then consolidated at European level so that the aviation community can identify the gap between what is needed at European level and what can actually be done at the local and regional level to close or bridge these gaps. What is the role of Eurocontrol in all this? Eurocontrol is to support European aviation by coordinating the contributions to the annual ATM Master Plan Level 3 implementation plan at the level of ECAC, which is part of the ICAO Air Transport Global Community, and which includes Eurocontrol member states, plus Azerbaijan, Morocco, and Israel. Eurocontrol also supports the aviation by facilitating the production of implementation progress reports made by the national stakeholders. It supports by producing or supporting the production of consolidated reports at European level, such as the ATM Master Plan Level 3 Progress Report and the GANP ASBU Monitoring Report for ICAO at European regional level. The ICAO report includes 9 additional states, 7 Eastern European countries, and 2 Northern African countries. Eurocontrol also supports aviation by the decision-making by various steering bodies on any remedial action needed to implement the plans. As of 2022, the gathering of all the data through this LSIP process is used by SDM to ensure the monitoring of CP1. To finalize this first module, we have a question for you, a little quiz. What do both European ATM Master Plan and ICAO Global Air Navigation Plan, the GAMP, need? Concrete implementation plans, progress monitoring, or both answers are correct. I'll give you a second to think about it. Both answers are correct. This concludes Module 1. Module 2 will be taking over now.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Alexandra Papagyuk-Sener, and I'm involved in several monitoring processes in our unit, and as well, I'm a contact person and objective coordinator. In the Module 2, 2 of this presentation, we will discuss about our process requirements. We will find out why the European Master Plan and the LSSIP processes were introduced, how this mechanism is created, and what are the links with other reporting mechanisms in Europe. To start with, the Single European Sky and SESAR framework requires stakeholders to agree at the European level on the implementation actions prior to the local deployment. EU regulations are one of the channels to ensure harmonization. In addition to these regulations, the European states recognized the Master Plan Level 3 and LSSIP mechanism as the frameworks that will allow to introduce synchronized actions in order to achieve the expected benefits of SESAR and SES and the agreed performance targets. The graphic that you see in front of you shows the SESAR performance ambitions with ensuring high level of security, reduction in the air navigation services costs, reduction of delays, and increase in the capacity following the increase in traffic, reduction of CO2 emissions, improving noise and air quality, reduction of flight time with less fuel burn, and improvements in the safety area. To discuss about the cyclic process, we have 3 main components: the European ATM Master Plan Level 3 and the LSSIP Plus mechanism constitutes a cycle process which starts with the deployment planning at a European level through the ATM Master Plan Level 3 implementation plan and is involved and followed by the reporting and monitoring at 2 levels. We have the local level of each involved state through the LSSIP Plus mechanism, showing the implementation of the objectives at national level by the respective national ATM stakeholders, and the European level with the Early Master Plan Level 3 progress report showing the implementation of the objectives at ECAC level. As my colleague Nancy said, it is important to highlight that there are other 2 reports at the European level, namely the ICAO ASPU monitoring report and the STP monitoring view. However, the main components are indeed the Master Plan Level 3, the LSSIP Plus, and the Master Plan Level 3 report. Further, the European ATM Master Plan Level 3 and the LSSIP process are closely linked to other planning and monitoring mechanisms of the organizations that cope with the agency. With the SESAR Deployment Manager, to start with, as of mid-2021, there is no more double reporting for the implementation stakeholders. There is the main link with the SESAR joint undertaking through the ATM Master Plan development. The European Defense Agency, EDA, has been using in the past some parts of the information in LSSIP Plus for the monitoring of the military infrastructure in Europe. The results of the LSSIP monitoring are used by the International Civil Aviation Organization for the monitoring of the Global Air Navigation Plan, as mentioned. There are links with the European Aviation Safety Agency for the European Plan for Aviation Safety, which are established at this moment at the planning level. As well, at the planning level, the European Commission Airspace Architecture Study was introduced in the form of initial outline descriptions in the master plan. We support this use-based services as well, and we do support the monitoring processes of the network manager colleagues for network system coordination and synchronization, known as NetSys, and online data interchange, known as OLDI. Therefore, after going through this slide, we would like to address you a short quiz. And let's see, why were the ATM Master Plan and the LSSIP process introduced? And I clicked too fast, but to go through, to report to the implementations to ICAO, to introduce synchronized actions in order to achieve the expected benefits of SES and SESAR by all ATM stakeholders, or at the request of EDA for military purposes. Well, as already you have seen, the correct answer is B, to introduce synchronized actions in order to achieve the expected benefits of SES and SESAR by all ATM stakeholders. Thank you, and now we will pass it to the next module.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Danny de Baals. I'm the head of the unit responsible for these topics. I will lead you through module 3, which is about the deliverables, and this module will last a bit longer than the ones before. So here we speak about the various deliverables that we produce in the unit. We will mention the main deliverables, therefore, the Master Plan Level 3 Plan and Progress Report, the 44 LSSIP documents, and the ICAO ASBU Implementation Monitoring Report. First, we will speak about the overall Master Plan. European ATM Master Plan is an evolving roadmap for ATM modernization in Europe and the result of strong collaboration between all ATM stakeholders. As the technical pillar of the Single European Sky, or the CES initiative, the CES ATM research, which is better known as the CESAR, it contributes to achieving the CES high-level goals and supports the CES regulatory framework. The Master Plan details not only a high-level view of what is needed to be done in order to deliver a high-performing ATM system in Europe, it also explains why and by when. It sets the framework for R&D, research and development activities performed by the CESAR joint undertaking, the SGU, in the perspective also of the deployment activities to be performed by all operational stakeholders and under coordination of the CESAR Deployment Manager, SDM, for the so-called regulated common projects. Initially, there was the PCP, the Pilot Common Project, and now we have CP1, the Common Project 1, to ensure overall consistency and alignment. All 3 levels of the Master Plan are under governance of the SGU, with a dedicated project for its maintenance led by EUROCONTROL. A full new update of the European ATM Master Plan, the so-called 2020 edition, was produced and approved at the SGU Admin Board December 2019. The content of the Master Plan is structured in 3 levels to allow stakeholders to access an integrated set of information at the appropriate level of detail. Level 1, which is the executive for the executive level stakeholders, constitutes the synthesis. It gives CESAR vision, performance view, operational view, deployment view, business view, and risk management. There is one deliverable approximately every 3 to 4 years. Level 2 and 3 of the Master Plan provide more details on operational changes and elements, and therefore the target audience is expert level stakeholders. There's the level 2, which is the planning and architecture view, and it's available only through the European ATM portal. It provides the detailed planning and architecture information supporting the level 1 above, the level 3 under it. For this level, there is no tangible deliverable. It's in fact the entire information on that portal. And then the main important part for this briefing, level 3, the implementation view, has 2 deliverables. On one side, the implementation plan, on the other side, the progress report. The plan is a set of commonly agreed so-called implementation objectives and actions, including those resulting from other CES plans, such as the CESAR deployment program, and aiming at achieving stakeholders' performance targets. On the other side, the second deliverable, the progress report provides a progress assessment for all these objectives at ECAC level. So the level 3, it's a yearly set of major solutions ready for implementation that will need to be tracked upon. This is a table of content of the Master Plan. The level 1, the overall one, shows the vision stretching to 2040, performance ambitions, as performance always comes first. The operational view focusing on the 9 so-called essential operational changes, the EOCs. Then there is deployment scenarios and roadmaps, CBAs, cost-benefit analysis, and finally a risk management chapter with mitigation action. These 9 essential operational changes, the EOCs, give a sort of sorting of all aspects of the Master Plan, and you will see these coming back at some points in this presentation. So far we have talked about the overall Master Plan, and now we focus on the Master Plan Level 3 and the LSSIP, the yearly implementation planning and monitoring cycle, which this unit is responsible for. As said earlier, the Master Plan Level 3 implementation view consists of 2 closely related parts, the plan, the progress report. and it's completed by the national stakeholders local single sky implementation, the abbreviation being LSSIP. The plan is a performance-oriented process, describes common implementation actions required to improve the European ATM network over the next 5 to 7 years. It applies to the entire ECAC region. It does this in the form of so-called implementation objectives and SLOAs, stakeholder lines of action, which define what has to be done, why, how, when, where, and by whom. And then the progress report consolidates the local implementation plans, the annual progress, provides an overview of implementation, and, importantly, identifies delays in implementation. This overview helps to focus the analysis on the most critical implementation delays and prepare for appropriate remedial actions, thus closing the loop between implementation monitoring and implementation planning. And the link between both deliverables are the LSSIP process and documents. Focusing on the Master Plan Level 3 implementation plan. It's updated on a yearly basis according to the outcome of monitoring and reporting activities linked to the execution of the previous editions of the Master Plan Level 3. It's based on Level 1 and Level 2, including the SDP, CESAR Deployment Program, the Network Strategy Plan, and some remaining SES interoperability regulations. It's also updated based on the Airspace Architecture Study and its short-term transition plan. Then, thanks to the double governance shared by the SGU and EUROCONTROL, it contributes to extension of CESAR to the entire ECAC area. The links between the Master Plan Level 3 plan and the CP1 CESAR Deployment Program are also kept updated in accordance with the CESAR Deployment Manager. This is done to ensure coherence in management of deployment of CESAR prerequisites, meaning the pre-CESAR baseline objectives, providing basis for implementation of CESAR concepts, as well as the common components of the CP1, the common project number 1. The main printed document, the one on the left, the Master Plan Level 3 Implementation Plan 2022, has recently been accepted by the EUROCONTROL Provision Council in August 2022 and by the SGU in September. Then on the right side, the technical annex to the plan, we call it the engineering view document, provides the whole set of individual engineering views of objectives included in the plan. It gives all details and is therefore the recommended document to be consulted while updating the LSSIP database. Here you see the contents of the most recent Master Plan Level 3 plan. We start with an introduction, context and scope, how to read it, and important for this cycle always, what is new. Chapter 2 gives the operational view organized per the essential operation chains, the EOCs. Chapter 3 shows more details of the deployment view, so a description of each of the objectives, and then chapter 4 offers some information on the AAS transition plan, and in the annex number 1 is very interesting as it links each of these objectives to other plans, such as the EASA's EPAS, the CP1, and other items. This dashboard is an overview of the various objectives in the current plan. It will be fully explained at the LSSIP kickoff meeting on the 27th of October, for which you still can register. Each operational view is a 2-pager with at the left all implementation objectives and CESAR solutions belonging to this EOC, involved stakeholders, and the FOC dates, the full operational capability. Then a description or a synopsis of the operational view, and finally the weight of this EOC compared to other EOCs. In the previous slides, we spoke about the operational view, the first view. Now, the deployment view gives for each EOC a deployment roadmap, giving more detailed description of each CESAR solution, the objectives related to it, and it refers to the what, the when, the who, and the where. Here's an example for objective AOM 19.5. Let's focus on a few details for this specific objective. The what. It's a description that should enable you to have a first idea what is meant. If you want more, if you need more, you could look to the next view, the engineering view in the technical annex. Then there's the when and the who. Here you see that this objective has an FOC date, full operational capability, for 2022. And it applies to the service providers, airspace users, and the network manager. The where. This one applies to most EU states and Maastricht Upper Area Center. The progress. Progress status is the completion rate information which we take from the Master Plan Level 3 report. And here's a detail that is important to know. It's about the factors in Master Plan Level 3 is comprehensive, so it includes all elements to be deployed, not only CP1 elements. This objective is in the portfolio of the CSR Deployment Manager, as we see under the heading of applicable regulations and standards and the CP1 SDP family reference. The benefits, information on industrialization and standardization. And finally, the bottom, the main actions by the stakeholders. Attention, if you want to see all actions, again, look to the engineering review or the technical annex document. The engineering review, which I just referred to, is the only source providing a complete, comprehensive description of each objective, with all details of the stakeholder lines of actions, the SLOAs, the finalization criteria, explanatory notes, and the reference to necessary supporting material. It is not printed, but it's available for everybody on the LSSIP database, the LSSIP SharePoint, or the European ATM portal, or if you just mail to us and we'll send it also to you. It's the most important view for specialists involved in the LSSIP reporting. As an LSSIP focal point, you should always refer to the engineering review and not only to what is summarized per objective in the LSSIP database. In this example, we show the detailed description of another objective, AOM 19.4, which is related to management of predefined airspace configurations. Engineering review provides the implementers with comprehensive information on the subject matter, applicability area timescale, gives a reference to the master plan, deployment program, the GAMP, ASBU, from ICAO, applicable legislation. It includes also details for the stakeholder lines of action, who is affected, expected performance benefits, and a reference to the relevant supporting material. Here's an extraction for content of objective AOM 19.4. Here you see detailing the link to CP1, geographic applicability, involved stakeholders, and a full description of what it means. Another element is the list of SLOAs, and important, the stakeholder lines of actions are equivalent for the CP1 objectives to the SDM deployment milestones in the CSR deployment plan. They're equal, they're the same. We include the reference number, title, time frame from by, and as mentioned, the view includes also an indication of which performance benefits can be expected. You see safety, capacity, operational efficiency, etc. Going through the engineering reviews, you find a detailed description of each SLOA, including information on who is involved, references to supporting material, such as EU regulations, EUROCONTROL standards, guidelines, specifications, and with links to go to the applicable documents. Where do you find this document? Engineering review, you find it in the LSSIP SharePoint. Most of you have access, and if not, we can give you access. The technical annex engineering review for all objectives is on a PDF file from the shared documents. The second way to find back this document is if you have access to the database, you can access it by clicking at the top right level of the screen of the database. And thirdly, simply on the web page, on the European ATM portal, you find it back as a PDF by clicking on the top right and selecting classic layout, because there's two types of layout. So you find it on a number of places, this document. So far, the plan, After we describe this plan in detail, we move on to the individual reporting mechanism, the LSSIP process and documents. The LSSIP process and documents delivered by states and national stakeholders provide a reality check on the Master Plan Level 3 plan. The level of implementation is reported by all national stakeholders, being civil and military, who have committed to this process. And at the end, they provide their signature, which shows their commitment. The LSSIP process is used as planning and reporting tool for NSAs, ANSPs, airports, and military. It is developed for each ECAC state. We have 41. It's also for Maastricht, Upper Area Center, a separate document, and for Israel and Morocco. So it's one printed document with a high-level ATM-related information about the states, local implementation plans, and progress reports on the mature elements of the master plan, being the objectives. It's made yearly, with the situation at the end of the calendar year for which it is published. So typically, the documents get available between March and May, and they show the situation at the end of last year. The process itself has been extended to the whole ICAO Europe region, where on one side, ECAC, Israel, and Morocco are covered by LSSIP, so no double reporting, but the 9 remaining non-ECAC states, such as Algeria, Tunisia, the Russian Federation, etc., they use a specific questionnaire fully linked to the LSSIP process to benefit the ICAO ASBU monitoring. The process has been established almost 3 decades ago. It's based on the cooperation between EUROCONTROL and states and national stakeholders. The LSSIP national focal point is the person responsible for ensuring that correct and consistent data is provided, respecting the agreed time schedule. It's a nominated person by the state among the staff of either the NSA or the ANSP. The focal point is responsible for coordinating of inputs from all his colleagues, the national stakeholders, during the production of the documents, which is between October and February. The national stakeholders use a number of tools, including the online LSSIP database and the LSSIP SharePoint, which we will present in the next slide. The contact person, the EUROCONTROL contact person, is supporting the cycle. He or she is mediating between EUROCONTROL and the national stakeholders to maintain timely and precise information. He or she provides necessary support and instructions for his or her states for the production and updating of the data, and works in full support of and to the LSSIP national focal point. It is the LSSIP focal point, the national focal point, who holds the final responsibility for provision of consistent and complete LSSIP information. The process is supported by work instructions and templates to facilitate the work. The final result is a national document signed by all parties that presents, amongst other information, the level of implementation of the objectives at the end of the reporting year. The structure of the LSSIP document is fully harmonized among all states. For the most recent edition, the upcoming 2022 and the former 2021, is divided into 5 chapters, of which the first 4 chapters are presenting the ATM environment, and chapter 5 is details on implementation. Chapter 1 is an introduction. You get an overview of the institutional ATM arrangements. Chapter 2 is about traffic, capacity, and ATM delay situation per ACC in that state. Chapter 3 is about major ATM implementation projects at national, multinational level. Chapter 4 is about cooperation. And chapter 5 is devoted to the objectives and their analysis at national level. All the LSSIP documents are available on the EUROCONTROL website, and everyone has direct access to any of these documents on the link you will see on the slide. An important notion enabling tracking the progress in a uniform way is the notion of progress status. It applies at the level of objectives and the stakeholder lines of action, and enables to see for each item the progress, or sometimes the lack of progress. The definition of each of these 5 progress status is defined in a consistent way, allowing it to be measured. We will look to each of these on the next slide. Let's suppose we have a certain objective with a date in the future. We start the first year of monitoring. The FOC, the full operational capability date, is set in the objective definition. It's comparable to the SDP target implementation date. An easy case, which is very exceptional in the first year of reporting, is that the state, with all national stakeholders, considers it is already completed. Completed means in operational use. All checkpoints answered yes, and the computed percentage is 100%. These checkpoints are intermediate questions at SLOA level that further detail what is to be done. Computed percentage, I'll come back to it later in this briefing with a real example. And so, if the objective is considered completed, stakeholders do not need to report further unless, of course, the situation has changed in the meantime over the next 2-3 years. Another example is not applicable. It can be that the state is outside the applicability area and will not implement, or alternative solutions are being implemented. Now, it's very important, and we really stress on it, that the progress is not only the only information reported. We want the stakeholders to properly justify and explain their decision. And in case of doubt, there is a dialogue mode between the EUROCONTROL contact person and the state focal points. Now, what if, and especially for the first year of reporting, one has not yet made up its mind? There could not yet be a final decision to implement, or not yet a budget. In this case, we call it not yet planned. But of course, then the next year, real stakeholders have to reconsider and will decide to plan on the implementation. For that, we have the other progress statuses. Now, what if the first year, the stakeholders have already an entry in their business plan to eventually somehow implement, but without any effort yet started? Well, that's a 0%, and we call that planned. However, already some actions would have been started, then you have a certain percentage, and we call that ongoing. It's above 0%, and of course less than 100%, because otherwise it would be completed. Now let's look to a real example where the stakeholder reports ongoing status this year, 2022, 50% progress, and they plan, as you see, a year before the FOC. On the second year of reporting, well, it could be at 85%, still foreseen to implement in 2024. Then on the third year of reporting, the stakeholder committed to implement the objective. It's finalized, completed 100% progress prior to 1 year prior to the FOC date. A nice example, but let's go to a more realistic scenario of reporting. First year, same thing, 50%, planned in 2024. The second year, well, we did some progress. Some other activities have been done. We're at 60%, and we are still, or the stakeholder is still very much eager to implement the year after. Then the third year, of course, the reality check is then there. Well, 70%, but of course, yeah, then the implementation date shifts by 1 year and comes equal to the FOC date. And the following year, the objective is supposed to be completed. It still reports the objective as not yet finalized with 80%. And then really the year after, it's being implemented a year after the FOC. That's a realistic example. There are all cases in between. Now, it's important to highlight that as the previous cycle, there was a late status, it's not used anymore. For these kind of cases, if somebody is late, you will have to look to the difference between the date and the FOC. We still only use for that the ongoing status. I promised you an example. Here is an example. It's realistic, but it's illustrative. It details how a percentage are computed and what checkpoints are being used. It's not realistic. It's realistic enough, but it's not the real case for that country. The checkpoints are not shown in the level 3, but they are added in the database to make reporting easier and more uniform. We start at SLOA level. In this case, all checkpoints, 3 checkpoints completed. So the SLOA itself is completed. And because there's only one SLOA for the airport, it's also completed. And for the ANSP, we have their 3 stakeholder lines of actions. For the first SLOA, only 2 of the 3 checkpoints are completed. So 40%. Because you see the weighting 10, 30, and 60, the first 2, now 40%. And the status is ongoing. Same for the next one. And also ongoing. This one then is none of the actions have started, so this one is planned. And the same for the next one. Simply planned, nothing started. Now let's see at the stakeholder level. We are here at 30%. 30% has already been implemented. And I think there's an error. No, that's correct. And then the overall one is clearly at 76%, assuming the 4 SLOAs have the same weight. My last comment about the LSSIP document is that in the data collection cycle for 2022, with the production of documents this year, we have 44 LSSIP documents produced, 1 for each ICAC state, together with mastered upper area, Israel and Morocco. EUROCONTROL has been coordinating this activity almost 30 years, and it gives the yearly commitment on ATM implementation and modernization of all ICAC states. We're almost there. We move now to the Master Plan Level 3 Progress Report. It gives a holistic view of implementation of the commonly agreed actions taken by ICAC states in the context of implementation of CSR. It's produced annually in close cooperation with the SGO and more than 30 CSR industrial partners. The layout and the structure are driven by the EOCs, reflecting alignment between all 3 master plan levels. It's mainly composed by the report, general dashboard and statistics, an executive summary introducing overall information on CSR implementation, a synoptic view for middle management, and finally, deployment view, addressed to experts, including statistics, progress information, maps, etc. Here is an example of deployment view of objective 19.4, whose estimated achievement date is beyond the FOC, full operational capability date. Hence, as you see, it's shown with a status as planned delay. The graph for the completion rate, which we get from the LSSIP, shows in percentages past and future evolution of those that have completed and, well, a graphic description of where it leads to. There's a pie chart that shows the progress amongst countries that have not yet completed. The main development section summarizes the main developments in the implementation based on the LSSIP and on expert judgments and analysis. And there's, of course, a map depicting each of the states concerned. In this example of the deployment view, we show the link with the portal. You see the map on the left side is generated from the map tool and can be accessed through the portal. The working access, see that link. So you see it's the same. The pictures, there's a different way of making it, but the information is exactly the same. The advantage with the portal, when you go on it, you hover over it and you will see more information which you don't find in the report. And then we're almost there, the final deliverable. It relies on the input from the master plan level 3 and the LSSIP. It's the ICAO Aviation System Block Upgrades, ASBU, Implementation Monitoring Report. It's developed by EUROCONTROL in cooperation with ICAO Europe and North Atlantic Office in Paris. And we use the LSSIP mechanism to analyze the level of implementation of the ASBUs at ICAO Europe level. The report is presented on an annual basis to the European Aviation System Planning Group. for endorsement and then submitted for inclusion in the annual ICAO Global Air Navigation Report. As mentioned in previous slides, the ECAC states, Israel and Morocco do not have to report anything in addition to what they report on the LSIP, because we extract information directly from that to be substituted in this report. Let's see to the two main data sources. There's the geographical scope. The blue are the LSIP states, including Morocco and Israel. Easy and straightforward, the information is there, we reuse it. So no double reporting since 8 years for these states, fully integrated. For the remaining 9 states, where you see the ones in red, we make every year a dedicated small questionnaire. We send it to them typically in May. Next year it will be earlier. And so we can collect the information and then make an overlay report between September and October. The base for this reporting is the GAMP. 2 years ago, there was an update, some of you may know. And for this version, we made a full analysis which of the ASBU elements in the GAMP are to be monitored and how. The figure one sees that 87 of the 114 elements in the ASBU were decided to be monitored at the ICAO level. 56 are coming from the recent LSIP information, 18 are covered by other data sources. Here you see the distribution of each element, block 0 and block 1. The left is the LSIP, the right is the questionnaire structure. Where are we now? Currently, we are about to finalize the report 2022 in the next 2 or 3 days. It will be discussed at the UNCISC, which is happening next week in Armenia. And the next step is the EASPG endorsement. So there we are, a small quiz, 2 questions this time. How many LSIP documents are published on the website each year? Is it 5? Is it 44? Is it 92? It's 44. That's a simple one. Another question about the progress report. How often do we produce? Every year? Every 2 years? Every month? Simple one. Every year. This concludes this module, and now we go over to another module.
Thank you. Now we will be discussing about the process. This module will clarify the overall timeline, the supporting documents for the LSIP Plus process, the focus on the LSIP Plus cycle timeline, and we will talk about the LSIP expert group. First, let's have a look at the overall yearly timeline. Remember, firstly, we start with the elaboration of the master plan, followed by the local reporting, and eventually the monitoring at the European level through the Master Plan Level 3 Progress Report and the ASBU Implementation Monitoring Report are built. Since last year, as you have already heard, we also support our SDM colleagues with the LSIP data for the production of the monitoring view. The local reporting deliverables are the national LSIP documents. We started the preparation for this LSIP 2022 cycle already in May with our colleagues from the LSIP expert group and with SDM. The real work of the stakeholders will start at the kickoff event at the end of October. The LSIP database will be blocked for some elements as of February 2023 and entirely frozen by 8th of March 2023. Afterwards, stakeholders will continue the finalization of the entire document and get its signature internally within the state. As the signatures get collected, the documents will become ready for their publication. As you know, once the database is frozen in March, the production of the Master Plan Level 3 Progress Report starts. Simultaneously, our colleagues from SDM will be working on the elaboration of the Monitoring View Report. These reports use the information in the LSIP database. As every year, the Master Plan Level 3 report will be finalized after the month of May. Then the final deliverable, as you heard, is the ICAO ASBU Implementation Monitoring Report. This report reuses information from the Master Plan Level 3 Progress Report, but also takes specific information from the LSIP-based questionnaires sent to the non-ECAC states from the ICAO Europe region. As typically these ones are sent out later in the LSIP documents, we started this year to work on this deliverable as of August, but we are changing the timeline for the upcoming monitoring cycle. Overall, you can see that there is an annual cycle that stretches over approximately 2 years. EUROCONTROL is permanently and at times simultaneously working on various deliverables throughout the aforementioned period. Let's talk now and have a look about the supporting materials of the cycle, which include an updated working instruction package, the LSIP updated template, which will be the basis of the first LSIP draft, and the educational material package, which was introduced this edition in the form of several tutorials on key subjects. These materials are reviewed within our team yearly and updated where relevant. Let's now have a closer look at the contents and structure of the working instruction package. The first chapter covers the description of the LSIP roles and responsibility. In this chapter, the accountabilities of all the parties involved in the process, roles and responsibilities of the states, LSIP focal points, the local stakeholders, the agency contact persons, and the SDM and EUROCONTROL objective coordinators and experts are described in detail, but we will also go through this further. The section is available to support the organization of the national LSIP process in case of new incoming states or new stakeholders, and it used as well for consultation in case of doubts or concerns. As the roles are reviewed every year, we also advise the persons that are already very familiar with the process to have a yearly revision of it. The second chapter covers the elaboration process of the LSIP documents describing who does what and when. The section includes the overview of the timeline and the detailed description of the differentiated phases or periods in it, the specific actions of all the parties involved in the cycle, and some key definitions. The third chapter explains how to establish the progress and status of the objectives at all levels, as you have seen in the previous module, from checkpoint to SLOA to stakeholder and to state. The fourth chapter consists an extinguished analysis of the LSIP database, and the last chapter, chapter 5, offers you a manual of using our LSIP online SharePoint. This year, the LSIP stakeholder community got a flyer on September 9th as an introduction to the LSIP 2022 cycle. It's a new format of our communication line, and it provides a very high-level overview of what's new and what to expect in the following cycle. Moving forward to the roles and responsibility in our ways of working, this diagram offers you a high-level overview of the interrelations of the main actors participating or involved in the LSIP cycle. Here you can see it displays the close collaboration of EUROCONTROL and SDM during the data cross-check period, aimed to align two reporting streams into a consolidated one. It also shows the key and central role of the contact person, which acts as the focal point of contact and intermediator or mediator among the three persons. As we promised, here you will have a very detailed overview. As in the previous cycle, it is important to understand the roles and responsibilities of the different parties involved in the cycle. Therefore, we will need to differentiate the 6 well-defined roles. Let's start with the national LSIP focal point. This is a role that falls on the stakeholder side. The national focal point is not only the main coordinator of the national stakeholders during the LSIP cycle, but also the coordinator of the data gathered used for building the LSIP document. Usually it is nominated by the state among the staff of the NSA or the regulatory authority of the NSAP. The national stakeholder experts gather the data for its input in the database and collaborate in the LSIP document elaboration process. The national experts, together with the focal point, we will also review the change request. The EUROCONTROL LSIP contact person as mentioned, is the mediator between EUROCONTROL, SDM, and the state during the LSIP cycle. The contact person will work in close coordination with the focal point and other stakeholders and will provide support during the entire cycle for the data gathering and the compilation of different chapters and sections. As well, we mentioned already the SDM team is highly involved during the LSIP cycle through. We have the SDM coordinators that will be the main reference for the CP1 related objectives in EU states and will work in close collaboration with the LSIP contact persons. They will review the information in the database and coordinate its revision and analysis with relevant experts. The EUROCONTROL objective coordinators will work in collaboration with the LSIP contact persons, the SDM objective coordinators, and objective experts during the LSIP cycle. They will revise the gathered data and coordinate its analysis and review for all non-CP1 families objectives and for all the objectives in all non-EU states, MOAC, and Switzerland. SDM and EUROCONTROL experts from 4 partners of the new partnership will review the data and provide comments and feedback for different objectives and family. These comments will be translated into the database via the change request by the contact person. This information is also included more in depth to the 2022 LSIP working instruction, where the roles and responsibilities are highly developed. After covering this part, we will talk about the LSIP detailed timeline. And let's see, as the previous year, the preparation of the cycle started well in advance for EUROCONTROL together in collaboration with our colleagues from SDM. But as always, the real work of the stakeholders starts with our annual event, which will take place on the 27th of October this year. At the event, we will show the audience the changes to the process, which are detailed in the updated working instruction package and template. The LSIP database will be ready to be used by the LSIP focal points and other appointed stakeholders in the states and already pre-filled with the data of the previous cycle. The template is only the basis for the initial draft. Here, in our unit during early November, we will make 44 initial draft documents. The states will have 3 months to review and update the data in the LSIP database, starting with the 27th of October and up to the 31st of January. By 31st of January, all the data shall be stable. And as of 1st of February, the database will be blocked for modification. The data cross-check period is the time used to analyze and review the stable data in depth and will take place during the month of February. The experts will have around 10 days to review the data and give their inputs. By the 17th of February, all the inputs will be encoded in the database in the form of change requests. The states will review these comments and will reply to them, while the contact person will do the relevant modifications in the database. Eventually, on the 8th of March, the LSIP database will be frozen. It is that when the work on the Master Plan Level 3 Progress Report and the SDP Monitoring View can be started. During the following couple of weeks, the rest of the LSIP documents shall be finalized so that a working level agreed can be reached. The states will internally then collect the relevant signature, which will be translated into a final public document. Over here, let's go through the main deadlines to remember. On the 31st of January, all the objectives must be stabilized. On the 1st of February, the database will be blocked for changes. Of course, focal points will still be able to update the database via coordination with their contact person. From the 1st to the 17th of February, the experts will review the data and provide comments where needed. The contact persons will be in charge of encoding this feedback received by the experts in the database in the form of change requests. Again, we highlight the fact that the stakeholders have time from February up to the 8th of March to work on these change requests. On the 8th of March, the LSIP database will be frozen. To sum up, the 3 key points of the data cross-check period to remember are the following. The goal of this phase in the timeline is to ensure the proper review and validation of the data by the objective experts and the quality of the information. The timeline of the data cross-check goes from the 1st of February till the 8th of February. The role of the stakeholders during this period would be to check, review, and reply the change requests, and to keep a close coordination with their contact person in order to resolve their change requests. A final comment in this module is about the LSIP expert group. We are talking about a group of 50 national experts from all categories of national stakeholders. The EUROCONTROL team does not define all the process alone. With the LSIP expert group members, we hold regular meetings to discuss all aspects of LSIP process, such as the working instruction, the methodology, the enhancement at each cycle. This group is our sounding board, and here you can see the logos of the concerned organizations. Here, to finalize this module, let's see if you paid attention. When will the LSIP database freeze this year? Is it in January? Is it in February? Or in March? In March. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Itza Sotalba, and I will be introducing you to our tools. So indeed, this section introduces the web tools supporting our monitoring and reporting process. In particular, we are going to describe the LC Plus database that enables local stakeholders to provide and manage implementation information about objectives, SDP families, and projects. We will then check the homepage of the LC Plus online SharePoint, a cloud-based service that provides a common platform for collaboration, document management, and information sharing between the contact person and the stakeholders. Then we'll have a look at the European ATM portal, which is the home of the European ATM Master Plan. Here, the 3 levels of the plan and their connections are shown. And finally, we will look at the EUROCONTROL website, containing the links to the relevant tools and documentation. So here we have the LC Plus database, which is a restricted web application used by more than 400 authorized users, allowing national stakeholders to provide detailed information on its implementation objective or SDP family, including assessment against objectives descriptions, finalization criteria, and overall European planning information. Data access is restricted at country level, except for members of the same functional airspace block, who may share information among partners. The application provides also automatic warnings in case of any missing mandatory information or inconsistencies are detected. The communication and coordination between the LSIP contact person and the LSIP focal point is also supported by change request notifications. On the homepage of the LC Plus database, you can see the timeline summarizing the workflow of the cycle, which is divided in 3 main periods that point out at the main deadlines for inputting the data. The first period is dedicated to data input and stabilization, and goes from the day of the kickoff event, which is the 27th of October this year, until February. The second phase is the data cross-check period, which lasts as of February until the 8th of March 2023, and you see it in orange. And the final period that you see in green goes from the day of the freezing of the database, which is the 8th of March, as we said, until reaching working level agreed, around the 22nd of March. The number of days left until the freezing of the database is shown at the top right of the screen. On the left, a live dashboard shows information about objectives, families, open warnings, and change requests that need action. This is an overview of the progress of your work and highlights the pending actions. By clicking on the open warnings or on the open change requests, an hyperlink will open the referred pages, listing the summary of the items to be addressed. The user can then acknowledge the new warnings or new change request, and they won't appear as new anymore. Also, on the left side of the homepage, there is a section reflecting useful links which are listed for easy reference. It includes hyperlinks to the related useful external sites and documents. As of the 2022 edition, the link to SharePoint highlights the addition of the educational material, which we encourage you to download. The educational material will help you learn about the main functionalities of the database with step-by-step tutorials and will offer you advice on the best practices for data collection and reporting. Now let's check how the objectives are shown in the database. By default, you will see the list of all the objectives, all the active objectives, including the SDP families or CP1 objectives monitored since last cycle through our tool. We'll focus now on the CP1 objectives or SDP families, which are the ones feeding the SDP monitoring view and also included in our level 3 report. In the past 2021 edition, a new filtering button was created, the CP1 SDP button, that links directly the SDP families of the CERSA deployment program, mapping them with the master plan level 3 objectives. The information that is displayed in this view is, as you can read from left to right, the SDP family code, the SDP family title, the linked implementation objective code, the implementation objective title, the type, which can be CP1 or not, the scope, the FOC date, the foreseen implementation date, the status, the progress percentage, the stability information, and the effort coordination information. Now let's check at the view when clicking on an objective. When an objective is selected, a dedicated page is opened. The left side of the screen shows the SDP or family or objective tree, allowing the user to easily navigate through the different levels. First, we have the SDM family or objective level, then the organization or and stakeholder level, and the third one is the deployment milestone or SLOA level. And now let's see how we work on the objectives and how we input the data. While working on an objective, there is a single screen that includes both the edit and read mode. In order to edit an item, it is enough to click on it and edit the document. Users need to keep in mind that some fields, for example, dates and percentage at the stakeholder and national level, are not editable, but automatically calculated based on the information given at the deployment milestone or SLOA level. The editable items are clearly identified with a pencil, which appears when hovering on the item. To identify an item as consolidated or stable, it is enough to click on the relevant button and the change will be immediate. When all the changes are done, you must remember to click in the Save button to save your work. Let's now go into detail on how to actually fill in the tool when reporting on a specific objective or SDP family. We will also explain how the database calculates the progress based on the data you input. So this is how the calculation is done. The first step is to fill in the checkpoints. In order to do that, first select the relevant objective, then the SLOA or deployment milestone. Under each SLOA or deployment milestone, there is a list of checkpoints that need to be checked with a yes, no, or not applicable answer. Each checkpoint is assigned a weight. The second step is to select the status of that specific SLOA or deployment milestone. By clicking on the drop-down menu, you will be able to choose between completed, ongoing, planned, not yet planned, or not applicable. Stakeholders are also requested to insert a text comment in the comment field to explain the details of the implementation. On the third step of the calculation, we see that each SLOA and deployment milestone has a weight assigned. The consolidated progress at the stakeholder level is then calculated based on a weighted average of each SLOA or deployment milestone. The last step is to calculate the aggregated percentage progress at objective level. This time, a weight is applied to each stakeholder. The consolidated progress is then calculated based again on a weighted average of each stakeholder. It is important to note that the weighted average approach applies to CP1 objectives only, regardless of their applicability area, so for EU and non-EU states. For all other objectives, the simple arithmetic average explained in a previous module is applied. This methodology will be explained more in detail during the event on the 27th of October and in bilateral meetings. It is further elaborated as well in our working instructions on step-by-step tutorials. And now we will introduce you to different additional parameters which can be accessed in the LC Plus database. The second tab in the top bar menu is dedicated to the projects. Here you can access the list of national and multinational projects, as well as automatically generate relevant reports. The projects appear divided per scope. They can be national, multinational, and FAB, and are shown in different tabs. The projects provided by the state in the LC Plus database shall be significant in terms of impact on the performance areas at regional or at national or regional level. They do not have to be limited only to the projects described in the performance plan, as sometimes states might have new projects starting after its submission that are also relevant. The next tab is dedicated to questionnaires and includes the different questionnaires that need to be filled in during the cycle in a drop-down list. As an example, you can see the surveillance questionnaire that reflects the surveillance system projects covering the full chain, from sensors to surveillance data integration into SDPS and CWP. Full information on all the questionnaires will be provided during the kickoff event on the 27th of October, as well as during bilateral meetings with your contact persons. Step-by-step instructions and tutorials are also available through the working instructions and educational material. Let's now talk about how to generate reports. The LC Plus database offers the possibility to automatically generate two different types of reports: the high-level report and the detailed report. The high-level report summarizes the implementation progress at objective and stakeholder levels, while the detailed report gives more detailed implementation data at the SLOA and checkpoint levels. Both reports include a number of additional optional fields to display the various links of implementation objectives with different planning documents. Then we have the LC Plus database analytics section, which provides tailored views on the data in the form of several graphics, charts, and tables. As an example, we are showing the high-level summary table, which displays the current progress and status for all objectives. The last section in the Analytics tab is dedicated to the SDP monitoring output. Since the publication of the Common Project 1 and the alignment between the ATM Master Plan Level 3 Implementation Plan and the CESAR Deployment Program, the LC Plus database features a new dashboard under the Analytics tab. The SDP monitoring output, built in Power BI, is a dynamic dashboard that calculates the progress of the Common Project 1 for each SDP family and service in the relevant applicability area. The data refreshes 3 times a day following any update in the LC Plus database. To finish up with the database, let's check its link to NetSys. The network system coordination and synchronization monitoring reporting cycle runs in parallel with the LSIP cycle. Several NetSys ATM system functionalities are covered in the ATM Master Plan Level 3. In particular, a subset of implementation objectives stakeholder lines of action, SLOAs, 11 for the 2022 edition, provide information that suits NetSys monitoring purposes. A unidirectional synchronization from the LC Plus database to the NetSys database is therefore possible, benefiting from the information gathered through the LC process. Such cooperation implemented by a set of aggregation and conversion algorithms will also allow a mutual improvement of the quality of the implementation data, avoiding at the same time double reporting issues. Such a predefined link of the LSIP SLOA with the matching NetSys ATM functionality is visible in both reporting support tools, allowing the switch between reporting elements through both applications. So enough now about the database. Let's see what else is available to support you. The LSIP SharePoint Online site is a collaboration tool for the LSIP contact persons, stakeholders, focal points, and experts. It represents a secure space on the internet to share, organize, collaborate, and manage the LSIP process. Each state has exclusive access to a dedicated library containing the documents related to its own national environment. such as bilateral presentation slides that your contact person will upload for you. As we said earlier, the homepage includes all the relevant links to external sites, the tools, and all the necessary supporting material for this cycle. So it will include the working instruction package, the educational material, the flyer, all the kickoff event presentations, among other documents. The homepage also includes a calendar and a list of events that remind you of the main deadlines and milestones of the cycle. Now let's look at another very useful tool, the European ATM portal. All of you can get access to the non-public working part of these tools once you have an account in One SkyTeams. The portal is designed to cover all necessary information concerning ATM, from research and development to deployment. The deployment overview shows all master plan level 3 and LSSIP information. It focuses on the implementation objectives at planning level, while at reporting level, it presents the yearly cycle of the European monitoring that underpins the master plan level 3. The implementation objectives planning tab presents a list of all active implementation objectives, including detailed descriptions of the stakeholder lines of actions, and also presents the relationship of the implementation objectives to the level 2 of the master plan and the CP1 elements. The implementation objectives monitoring section provides a view of the implementation progress of the objectives through specific progress reports and maps and statistics. It also contains an implementation progress view at the state level and an aggregated view at FAB level. Finally, on the EUROCONTROL website, you will find more information. Along with our mission and a brief description of the ATM planning, reporting, and monitoring activities, this part of the website also provides links to our main deliverables, such as the LSSIP documents, the Master Plan Level 3 Plan and Report, and the ICAO's monitoring report, as well as the LSSIP Plus database and the LSSIP Plus SharePoint site. And here you see an example of the Romanian LSSIP section. Here you will find the LSSIP monitoring page with direct links to the last LSSIP documents published. And you will also find access to the LSSIP Plus database and the LSSIP SharePoint. Now let's have a little quiz on this module. What are the main two tools that are used for the production of the LSSIP document? Could be A, the LSSIP Plus database and the LSSIP SharePoint site, or B, the LSSIP Plus database and the EUROCONTROL website, or the LSSIP Plus SharePoint and the EUROCONTROL website. So the answer is A, the LSSIP database and the LSSIP SharePoint site.
And so here we are at the end of the 6 modules. I will do a summary for all of you who are still listening. A wrap-up where you find more information and a short list of useful web links. So we're at the end of the webinar on Master Plan Level 3 and its LSSIP monitoring. We've guided you through the ATM implementation planning, reporting and monitoring process in Europe with the requirements, the set of deliverables, entire process, and an overview of the tools. In brief, it's not really rocket science, but it's a process in use since almost 30 years that is cost effective. It's all about working together with stakeholders, with our CSAR colleagues from the SDM and SGU, also with ICAO, EASA, others. It is continuously adapting to a changing environment in the past, now, and surely in the future. And above all, it's pragmatic. Now, if you want to know more information, we have an upcoming event, 27th of October. It's an annual event So you still can subscribe directly through your focal point, whatever. It is both physically here in Europe, EUROCONTROL Europe room, but it can also be followed partially online. There is also, as always, a bilateral meeting between the EUROCONTROL contact person and the state focal point and the experts. This is happening 1 or 2 hours before the 27th of October. Most are happening 1 or 2 weeks after the 27th of October. At that moment, you go through with your EUROCONTROL contact person through the various things that have to be done. There's also the European ATM portal that you have access to. You can ask through your focal point access to the database. And on SDP and CP1, we have, of course, the SDM liaison officers. Finally, here, an overview of the links where you find the portal. On the portal, you find the plan. You find it elsewhere also. Everything on level 3 is, as you see, EUROCONTROL int master plan architecture and monitoring. LSSIP specifically is the 3rd bullet, which is interfered from the other ones, and the CISR deployment program itself is then on the SDM website. For overall support, always contact lsip.support@eurocontrol.int. Thank you very much. Bye now.